Recoil is the name of the book. The strap is called The Game Is On. Now, it's the first installment of a trilogy, and I got all of them here, actually. It's about a 16-year-old young woman, Jinxy James. She spends her days trapped at home playing video games, very much like a lot of our youth today. Now, Jinxy, she's later recruited to join in the force against the terrorists and meets a young man called Quinn. She's immediately drawn to Quinn O'Riley, a charming and subversive intelligence analyst who knows more about the new order of government and society than he's telling. Now, to talk to us about Recoil, the trilogy, we're joined in studio by the author, Joanne Macgregor. Very good morning to you, Joanne. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, Ian. Thank you for having me. First,
tell me about why you've decided to go with a sort of endgame war scenario, apocalyptic war scenario. Is that what people are really interested in today?
Yeah, it's a dystopian book, and I think the interesting thing about dystopians is that they're set in a fictional future world, but they really talk about the world that we're in today. And so the themes that I explore in this book in a fictional way are actually things that worry me and concern me about the world we're living in today.
And what are those? Is it the fact that our children are spending too much time playing video games?
No, that's just because I needed to get her to an expert level of being a sniper without actually leaving the house. It's more about, I suppose, the political message of the book, which is that we sacrifice individual freedoms.
Yeah.
Because our government tells us it's safer to do so. And in an age of international terrorism, we can often be frightened into being obedient and into being fearful, good citizens, and not actually see the hidden agenda of what's really happening.
Now, tell us about the trilogy, because do people still read that much? 3 books in a row? Do you think, you know, I find it difficult. I talk to people and they find it difficult to read one book. I had an author last week who wrote a 54-page novel and told me that this is the kind of thing that people want today. They want to read shorter books. Is that true?
I think there's a lot of different kind of readers, but there are readers who like to binge read, like there are viewers who like to binge watch a whole television series once it's out. And if you're clever as a writer and you don't quite wrap up things, or you leave them on an exciting note at the end of the book, hopefully you can pull people into the next one.
Tell me a little bit about the story, because it's a story that kind of resonates with me. It's the end of the world scenario, and there are these rats in the book, and a sort of viruses all around, and people are living indoors and in total locked up and in fear.
It's set in a near future or even an alternate present USA, where there's been a terrorist-spread biopandemic, which has decimated the population. And that's caused a massive shift to the right in terms of politics. And it's affected the way people live and how they're trapped in homes and how they have to work virtually. And this girl becomes an expert at playing a game in which she plays as a sniper. And then she's recruited to this shadowy government organization, supposedly to help in the war against terror. And she starts uncovering a conspiracy along the way. And of course she falls in love, because, you know, what's a book without love, especially on Valentine's Day?
Especially on Valentine's Day, no doubt. She's 16 years old. Does this book speak to a specific audience, or is it just a coincidence that she's 16 years old and probably impressionable and the like, and goes on this magical journey, if you can call it that?
Well, it's a young adult book, and the interesting thing about young adult books is that although they are supposedly written about teens and for teens, about 60% of them are bought and read by adults. So it's quite an interesting genre. It moves quickly, the story's always entertaining, the emotions are urgent and exciting. So that's the target market, whoever's young at heart or whoever's young. I think that when you're in your teens, it is a time of deciding who you are, and you know, who you are morally, and who you are in terms of your work identity. So it's a good match for that kind of exploration of the story.
Of course, the gaming element is it's quite strong in the whole book, and it's a very now thing. Do you think this book changes the way that maybe my generation could view the gaming fraternity?
I think it should. Well, my goal is that it would make people stay woke. so that it should change the way you view not only gaming, but politics and commercial interests in politics and the future, and not just question what you're told.
You're a psychologist. Fictional books like this, does it make the world a better place?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I mean, apart from the escapism, which I think we all need from time to time, there's studies showing that fiction in particular helps develop empathy in the brains of readers, because you immerse yourself in the viewpoint and in the shoes of the characters. And so you live many different lives, and you're exposed to many different cultures and many different people, and that makes you more empathic, and it makes you more tolerant. It also makes you smarter.
In today's world, there seems to be a real lack of empathy, isn't there? If you just look around us, not just politically, in society in general, we don't often put ourselves in the, or walk a mile in the shoes of another person. Why do you think that is?
I think we're living increasingly isolated lives and insular lives and online lives. We're having less and less contact with people. But I find it fascinating that you pick up on that, because it was one of the ideas behind the book, where I was watching a television program on snipers who were, professional army snipers, who were both incredibly skilled and talented and completely unempathic. They had no problems with what they were doing.
Yeah, with shooting a 12-year-old girl carrying water for home or something.
It's different to being a normal soldier where you're being fired at and you fire back. It's a very intimate kind of thing. You see the person, you often stalk them for days, you understand their family and their routine, and you see their face when the lights go out their eyes.
Yeah.
And yet, on the other hand, it's a game changer, and arguably it saves lives, because you don't have to send so many troops in. So I was fascinated by this combination of really skilled and not terribly compassionate or empathic, and I wondered what would happen if we had someone who was very skilled but who didn't like to hurt things or kill people, and that's where that book was born. In
this day and age, in the social media world we live in, people are quite mean when they're behind their laptop or behind their phones and so forth. Is this in a way trying to get people to see a little bit more than just what they feel?
Well, I suppose this isn't about that in particular, but I agree with you that people definitely should. It's easy to be a bully when you don't have to see the consequences for someone else.
What's next for Joanne?
In the next month or so, I will have a new romance coming out, also a young adult romance, and it's a realistic, non-fantasy retelling of the Little Mermaid myth.
Wow.
About a girl, it's set in Cape Town, and it's about a girl who trades her voice for love.
That will be interesting. Set in Cape Town, no less. So that's where I come from. We don't know much about love in that city. Anyhow, Recoil is the first one in a 3-part series. Let me just show it to you quickly. It's Refuse and Rebel. That's the 3-part series that you should have a look at. Joanne Macgregor's latest work. Well, she's already busy with others. Thanks for coming in today and sharing with us.
Thanks so much.